I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to end up writing on email, especially not in a section dedicated to scary stories. I'm just your average truck driver trying to make ends meet. My name's James, and I've been driving rigs for over 15 years. Seen a lot of strange things on the road, but nothing compares to what happened on my way to Toronto last fall. This is my story. It was late October, the kind of cold where the chill creeps into your bones. I had a load of auto parts to deliver to a warehouse in Toronto, about an 8-hour drive from where I started in Detroit. The day started like any other. Early morning coffee, a check on the rig, and hitting the highway before dawn. I prefer driving at night, less traffic and more peaceful, or so I thought. The first half of the trip was uneventful. I listened to some podcasts, kept an eye out for deer, and let my mind wander. Around midnight, I decided to pull over at a truck stop near the Canadian border to stretch my legs and grab a bite. It was a small, dingy place, just a couple of gas pumps, a diner, and a parking lot full of trucks. The diner was nearly empty, save for a couple of other truckers and the waitress, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I ordered a coffee and a slice of pie, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over me as soon as I stepped out of the truck. Maybe it was the isolation of the place, or the way the wind howled outside, but something just felt off. As I sat there, I noticed a man at the counter staring at me. He was gaunt, with hollow cheeks and eyes that seemed too big for his face. He wore a dirty baseball cap pulled low over his brow, and his clothes looked like they hadn't seen a washing machine in months. When our eyes met, he gave me a crooked smile that sent a shiver down my spine. "Heading to Toronto?" he asked, his voice raspy. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "Got a delivery to make." He nodded slowly as if weighing my words. "Be careful on that road. Strange things happen out there at night." I chuckled nervously, not sure if he was trying to mess with me or if he was just another lonely trucker with too many ghost stories. "Thanks for the warning," I said, finishing my coffee and leaving a few bucks on the table. As I walked back to my truck, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced over my shoulder, but the parking lot was empty save for the other rigs and the flickering neon sign of the diner. I climbed into the cab, locked the doors, and took a deep breath. "It's just your imagination, James," I muttered to myself, starting the engine. The road was dark and deserted as I crossed into Canada. The trees on either side of the highway seemed to close in, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I turned up the radio, hoping some music would distract me from the growing sense of dread. But no matter how loud I played it, I couldn't drown out the sound of my own heartbeat. About an hour into the drive, the fog rolled in. Thick and impenetrable, it swallowed the road and everything around it. I slowed down, squinting through the windshield, but visibility was practically zero. That's when I saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the rig came to a stop just inches from the figure. My heart pounded as I stared out into the fog, trying to make out any details. It was a woman dressed in a long, tattered dress. Her hair was matted, hanging over her face like a curtain. She didn't move, didn't even flinch as my headlights illuminated her. I rolled down the window, my voice trembling. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" She slowly lifted her head, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Her eyes were empty, hollow sockets staring back at me. I blinked, and she was gone, just vanished into the fog. I sat there breathing heavily, trying to convince myself I hadn't just seen a ghost. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. I had to keep moving, had to get to Toronto and deliver my load. Maybe I could find some answers there. The rest of the drive was a blur of fear and paranoia. Every shadow seemed to move. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see that woman standing in the middle of the road again. But she never appeared. When I finally reached the outskirts of Toronto, it was nearly dawn. The fog had lifted and the city lights were a welcome sight. I pulled into the warehouse lot, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. As I got out to check in with the night guard, I noticed something strange. The back of my trailer was covered in handprints, dozens of them, smeared in dirt and grime. I felt a knot in my stomach as I approached the guard, an old-timer named Bill. "Hey, Bill, you ever see anything weird on this route?" He gave me a curious look. "Weird how?" "Like people standing in the middle of the road or handprints on your truck." Bill's face went pale. "You saw her, didn't you?" I nodded slowly. "Who is she?" He sighed, lighting up a cigarette. "Local legend. They say a woman died on that road years ago, hit by a truck in the fog. Folks around here call her the road ghost. She's been seen by a lot of drivers, always in the fog, always at night. The handprints, those are from the other souls who got lost along the way. I felt a chill run down my spine. So what do I do now? Bill took a drag from his cigarette, his eyes distant. There's not much you can do, son. Just be grateful you made it here in one piece. And maybe next time, stick to driving during the day. I nodded, trying to shake off the lingering fear. As I drove away from the warehouse, I couldn't help but glance in my mirrors one last time, half expecting to see those hollow eyes staring back at me. That was the last time I drove at night. And every time I think about that road to Toronto, I can't help but wonder how many other drivers have seen her and how many never made it out of the fog.